there is something that we absolutely need to address. So, for the first time, well, no, I can't even say it's the first time. When I was doing music, I experienced this too. But since That's What She Said has been born, we have hit our first super controversial TikTok that hit the internets. Okay. The fact that we have wasted Beyonce's internets on this topic is crazy to me, but we have to, I want to address it because per That's What She Said norm, there is an underlining lesson here that we need to talk about and we need to learn. So before we get into the topic of internet trolls and cyberbullying, let me tell you guys what I'm talking about. This is the TikTok, or the short form content, which was a small snippet, a very tiny edited snippet from last week's episode of That's What She Said. So let me run it back for y'all so y'all can see. Okay.
To the table, I really feel like it's a dangerous question, right? It's dangerous.
It's a disrespectful question. Let's explain why it's a disrespectful question.
It's disrespectful, right? Because what's happening is you're automatically bringing a spirit of competition into a relationship where collaboration should actually be at the nucleus of that, right? Like, who are you that I am obligated to add something to your life? You asked to be invited into mine.
So my question would be, how would a man and or a woman ask ask about a person without saying, what do you bring to the table? Like, you're right. I think that we can rattle off a lot of things as far as the table is concerned about these attributes on paper. What is a more respectful way to ask that question?
Mm-hmm. I don't know that you could even ever, I don't think immediately you could even get those answers. I think it takes years to get to know somebody if you want to know the truth. I think the question,
don't tell me that.
I know, that's why, like, starting over is stupid, right? Like, make it work. I think the question that I could respect a whole lot more is, are we aligned? I want to look at you in the spirit. I don't want to see you how everybody else sees you. I want to see into you. I want to see what your heart is made of. I want to see what your character is like. Can I work with that? Any woman listening, if a man ever asks you, what do you bring to the table? Just leave. Just leave. For the record, only broke men have asked me stupid shit like that. Okay. All right. So that was the clip that garnered a crazy comment section. Do you guys ever watch Savage Mom Life on TikTok?
No.
You know who she is. Okay, so Savage Mom Life is a creator who basically, she reacts to videos, but not even the video itself. She'll watch the video and then she'll react to the comments of the video, which a lot of times are often hella hilarious. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to highlight some of those comments. And I think we should respond to them individually for the sake of short form content, which I will repurpose or have repurposed for TikTok for this in particular. So, comment number 1 from Kilimanjaro, but it's spelled Kilimanjaro. They all looking for daddies. They don't want to do nothing. Would anyone like to respond?
Man, I want to say, first thing I want to say about that comment section, I was busy and I had a lot going on and I couldn't help but to respond to some of what was happening. And I had no idea that men would have such an emotionally charged response to women having a conversation, to the point where you would insult women. I mean, you hear about this, but like when something blows up on Twitter and people are always talking about it, I'm never in the drama, so I don't know. And now I was in the drama, so I'm like, oh, okay, this is what it's like when someone's talking about something you completely disagree with or you're offended by, and you have a highly emotionally charged response to it, to the point where you're insulting these women. I just thought that was remarkable. I didn't think men behaved that way. So that was very interesting for me. And in terms of us needing daddies, I would love to have someone to call daddy. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I want to take care of you, daddy. I'm going to bring you your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, daddy. But I don't want you to ask me what I bring to the table the day we meet.
Right. The day that we meet. Thank you. Okay. I got another comment. ... says the gold diggers. Nasima, I'm just going to quarterback this right to you.
I mean, I think nothing strikes a nerve with mediocrity than someone saying that they don't need someone. And so, like you said, the only time you hear responses or somebody even saying, well, what do you bring to the table, is from broke people. I just feel like anytime, like you get this overwhelming response is usually from people who are not happy with their lives. And for somebody to say we're gold diggers, first of all, I've only heard people talk about gold diggers, broke people talk about gold diggers because people who have money that spend money on women do not care. Right. So who cares? I mean, like, yeah, I would love a go. I would love somebody to trick off on me. Yes, that would be nice, you know. And if somebody said differently, I would be like, you're lying. So yeah, sure, bring on the gold diggers.
Okay.
Jade, you got something to say about that?
I mean, it's just one of those things. It's just so interesting. Obviously, you can judge people off of a short clip, which is fine. Um, if we're gold diggers, then the guys that we date are gold diggers too, because we're both bringing something to the table. Is how I look at it, right? It's not. All of us are very well employed. All of us are very independent and can be. Would we like to be in relationships and like to be in a space where we felt cared for and loved and protected and even spoiled somewhat? I don't think that there's a woman on the planet that doesn't want that. But it's so fun. Y'all, I am not going to lie. It's funny because Patty, you said you're not used to guys responding this way. Let me tell you, over my media career, some of the harshest comments that I've ever received have been from men. You know what I mean? Seriously. It always baffles me because I'm like, wow, you really took time out of your day. Because there's so many things I see online that I don't agree with, and I just keep it pushing, right? Or I may call my homegirl and be like, girl, let's talk about this. Tell me if you see this another way or whatever. But to actually get my Twitter fingers together and leave harsh comments to try to, because a comment struck a nerve, now I want to hurt you back. Like, this is why I'm single. You know what I mean? Because you can't have we're gonna disagree on this type thing, and then labels have to be thrown and names have to be called, and it's just too much. It's unfortunate because we talk about these are grown men. These were not teenagers that were leaving these comments. These were grown men.
Yeah, one of the guys on the comment section was telling us, I tried to understand where he was coming from. And his comment later down was that I have sons and I'm worried about the type of women that he's going to be dealing with inside the society. And then I went further down to see one of his earlier comments, and the earlier comment was extremely insulting. Like, I think he said a bunch of, he called us a bunch of linebackers talking. And I went back to that and I responded and I said, this is what you're teaching your sons. You're worried about what your sons are learning from what women are talking about on an open forum publicly, having an open discussion about a question that really makes it more about like a transactional than relationships. And then you're calling women linebackers. That's what you're teaching your son. And that's what I told him, on that. I want to read a comment that was from a very successful man on Twitter. I was looking for this. So as I was looking down, it says, the reason that professionally ambitious men prefer women from the same socioeconomic background is because men look to their partner for professional and personal counsel. You need to be able to be informed and a sounding board. And after looking back at that video on TikTok so many times, I really thought we should have had more time on what Jade said. How do we have an appropriate conversation about getting to know? And I think what really got misconstrued or misunderstood in our last segment was, or from just based on that commentary, was that they did take a piece of the conversation and create a lot of dialogue. And I guess that's good for these sort of shows. You want that sort of that dialogue. But at the same time, I think what makes that very challenging is that we were talking about that being the first question, like, what do you bring to the table, right? If that's the first question, or that's the energy that you're coming into a relationship with when you meet someone, obviously initially there's an attraction, then you come together and conversation happens. If you're starting with what do you bring to the table, then there's just no chemistry there, right? Like, that's the least interesting thing about you, Nasima, Jade, Kelani. The least interesting thing about you is how much money you got in the bank, what kind of career you have, what kind of car you drive, what kind of house you own. That's the least interesting thing about you. So that's, I think, where we were coming from my perspective.
And you know what's crazy? I didn't even disagree. I mean, I didn't even agree with everybody on here as far as that question is concerned. Like, but what's so interesting is it is a lose-lose situation for a woman. So if I
Yes.
come and you ask me that question on a first
Right.
date, which is cool, like I'm okay with it, right? If that's how you feel, yes, it may disarm me and make me feel like okay. But if I actually answer the question, then there is also a very large chance that you will fire back your insecurities possibly and say, oh, okay, so a dude like me, you can't do nothing with a man like me, then you gonna think. So it's a lose-lose situation no matter how if you say don't ask me that question, or if you actually answer the question, depending on the personality that you're dealing with, right? So I just think it again, like men, when you strike a nerve, and like you said, it was mostly men in the comments, when you strike a nerve, to come back with an insult to me is so kindergartenish. To come back and try to hurt somebody at their core and then talk about their character and you don't even know the background of it, it's like, well, you're probably not the person that I would want to be sitting across the table from anyways, because that is some broad type stuff. That's some female type stuff, honestly.
100%. Well, and the part that
Yeah.
got me, I think the most, is that in the comments, everyone made it seem like we were insinuating that women don't have to bring anything to the table, which was not the nature of the conversation. In relationship in general, regardless of and let me make this distinction too. We said very clearly, if you look at the whole segment where we talked about what do people bring to the table, which is posted on our YouTube, we talked about it gender neutrally, right? I'm not going to go to a man and say, well, what do you bring to the table? What are you looking to provide for me? I'm never going to ask that question. That's not the question, because even if I did, you could sell me a whole ass pipe dream. You could tell me you can do this, you can do that, I can pray for this, I can provide that, I'm going to protect this, I can lead you to the Lord, I know how to lead. You could say all the things that you want to say that make you sound good, but only time will ever tell. So to me, my question then becomes, or the point that we were making is it's a disrespectful question, because one, in that moment when you first meet someone, it's not going to be accurate, because even if somebody is being introspective and says, okay, this is what I bring, maybe to me, maybe that's what I think about myself. Maybe I actually lack introspection. Maybe I'm actually not as healed as I think that I am. Maybe that's not actually entirely true. But you're going to meet the mask of somebody when you start. So to start off a relationship asking, what can you do for me, says more about you than it says about them. No one is saying that people don't bring things to the table. So that, for me, that's the wild part. It's like, no, I'm saying it's not a good question. I'm not saying it's not a valid thought. I'm not saying it's not something to consider in relationship. I'm saying it's not a good question. So anyway, here's another comment I want to highlight, and I want to actually answer it because I'm the one in the clip who said I've never had a well-off man ask me that question. Only broke men have ever asked questions like that. So someone says, Scott78 says, so what is your definition of a broke man? I'm curious on the answer. Well, for me, that answer is very, very simple. And broke is a mentality. Broke is not necessarily about what is in your bank account.
Yep.
It is completely a mentality. Are you complacent? Are you comfortable? Are you striving to progress? Are you striving to become a better human? Are you striving to become better emotionally, spiritually, financially, in all the areas of your life? Are you striving to show up better as a partner? That to me is what broke is about. So does anybody want to tap in on that before I get off that topic?
No, I agree.
Okay. I thought so. See, we be making sense. And diversity of thought is so good. So for anyone that is so offended by things, it's like, okay, come on, just let's have a dialogue about it. That's the hard thing about short form content and TikTok, is that you can't get the fullness of the thought off of a 90-second clip. But hey, we'll take the free promotion. Thank you for talking. Thank you for the
Thanks for the
comments.
engagement.
I mean,
Okay,
I don't know about being broke being just a mentality. I think that if you're not equally yoked, I think equally yoked has a lot to do with both spiritually, emotionally, and financially being balanced at a certain point in your life. It's different when you're 21, 22, 25, 28, maybe even, in your early 30s. But I think the older you get, or the more established you become, just like the gentleman's comment that I read from Twitter, I think it's really important to realize that there is an aspect of being broke that is a mentality, but at the same time, if you're not carrying some sort of weight financially in the relationship, there's going to create an imbalance that's going to lead to a lot of problems. I see it happen all the time. One of my clients just experienced her husband walking out on her after being lost his job about 6 months ago, was trying to handle the pressure of that behind the scenes, couldn't handle the pressure of it. She didn't even know the mortgage was behind because he was handling everything. And he walked out the door and left her just miserable after 8 years. So I think, I think there is a matter of brokenness being a mentality, but also making sure that you are equally yoked financially, even with just the way you manage money, not necessarily how much income you have, but the way you manage those finances going into it.
Managing is so important. I would also like to say, I hope that like the guy in the comment that said, this is why I'm afraid for my sons or whatever. I mean, I can't tell anybody how to raise their children, but I would also encourage you to teach your sons to have standards as well. What your
Yes.
son is bringing to the table, he should also have requirements. I mean, how many of us have been in relationships where, oh, this is going to sound so terrible, but it was only for love, and not understanding that love does not, it doesn't only sustain a relationship. There are other parts that play into it. And so that's this man's sons should have somebody who is also holding her own weight within the relationship, and they should have their own standards, and they should have their own requirements, and find somebody, like Patty said, who is going to spiritually, financially, and mentally add value to their life, right? And so it's not a compare and contrast. And men and women, we have to understand that this is not a you versus us type thing. Like, we are all stronger together, but stop making women feel guilty for having standards. Stop making women feel guilty for having requirements. Again, the assumption was made that we're all sitting around here, none of us ain't got no jobs, we're just waiting on a man to take care of us.
Right.
Like, I think that not only do we all bring something to the table, we bring the table with us. And so there's nothing wrong with us requiring some legs to that table as well. So you just got to be careful what you assume, when you hear people's opinions about things.